Beetroot juice, used by Olympic athletes for its stamina-boosting effects, caused waves at the last Olympics. Clinical studies proved 2 glasses of beetroot juice per day could increase stamina by 16%. I've been using it, and this product is excellent. Beets are a nutrition gold mine, so call 800-738-2198 or go to intelligentbeets.com. Get a 30-day supply free. That's 800-738-2198 or intelligentbeets.com. Welcome back to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. Today's podcast is about a unique approach to supporting bone and musculoskeletal health. It's low-intensity vibration. We're talking to Ian Cutts, who's Vice President for Commercialization for Maradyne LivMD. Their website is livmd.us or Maradyne.com. I'll spell it Marodyne.com. And in part one, we laid out some of the scientific rationale, described the therapy, but there's a very, very fascinating background on LivMD technology, which has to do with NASA involvement. Why would NASA want to get involved with vibrational platforms? Well, think about it. Astronauts endure long periods of zero gravity in space, and there's some very, very startling statistics about how quickly and how severely osteoporosis develops in these astronauts. It's a huge problem, and NASA is looking for solutions. So, Ian, tell us a little bit about NASA involvement in the research.
Yeah, so to your point, Dr. Hoffman, I think the sort of generally known statistic is something like 2% of bone is lost per month in zero gravity. So individuals on the space station or more to the upcoming, possible manned missions to Mars are going to have very, very sizable periods of time in a zero gravity environment. So for many years, NASA was very interested and is still interested in providing interventions that can suppress or eliminate, the bone decline and or possibly the associated muscle deconditioning that occurs when a human goes into that sort of environment. So Clinton Rubin, the primary researcher behind this technology, had a number of clinical and scientific studies funded by NASA over the years. The more recent one in humans was a adult volunteer bed rest study. So this was for a 90-day period, and individuals were compensated, I think it was something about $18,000 or so, to lay in bed for 90 days. With
I'm not sure if it's worth it.
It probably isn't. I mean, they had their head downwards 5 degrees, and then they were allowed to. They had no exercise as such, so they were replicating a sort of zero gravity environment. Now, some of them were harnessed to a vibration plate, and and it was almost like a bungee harness. So it went around the waist, and then the elasticated straps went onto the plate that was mounted on the bed that they were in. So it replicated something like 60% of body weight loading onto the plate. Now, those individuals that were vibrated, they showed better bone quality compared to the group that did not have the vibration, but they also showed very significant benefits in maintenance of postural stability and maintenance of balance compared to the individuals that didn't have the vibration plate. And also things like the spinal vertebrae and the intervertebral disc, there was a prolapsing risk in the group that didn't have the vibration. The vibrated group showed that didn't occur, and associated back pain was greatly reduced. So there are a number of sort of benefits that came out of the trial, but that was the closest we got to a low-intensity vibration plate on a US-based NASA-funded project.
Well, the implications are actually pretty clear for the practical experience of the average American, because the most of us aren't going to be launched into space, but come weekends, some of us are suspended in a lazy boy chair from Saturday through Sunday with lots of sports offerings between the playoffs, World Series, the advent of college and professional football, the hockey season, and now the basketball season pretty soon. I think some people are engaging in that experiment, and they're not getting their $18,000. So it clearly, lack of exercise, immobility, not getting up and walking around can predispose to bone loss, right?
No, absolutely. And I think, that study is a very good predictor of potential benefit, which was borne out with the clinical trial I mentioned from Hong Kong in the first part of the show. So there is definitely a musculoskeletal risk mitigation possibility with this device, as well as a sort of bone formation benefit from it. So, there are ongoing space programs. The Chinese themselves are doing a lot of work with this aspect of mechanical force, so there's ongoing research in that part of the world. I'm not quite sure with Russia as such, and they've explored larger magnitude vibration plates in the past, but again, deploying those into zero gravity is a challenge. So there is a proven concept. Clinton Rubin and some of his team went into the NASA zero gravity test plane. It was an old 727 that does deep dives and climbs, and it simulates a zero gravity environment. So they took the plate up and strapped on a volunteer, and they subjected themselves to a number of these cycles of zero gravity. It's known affectionately in NASA circles as the vomit comet.
Right.
And it showed that the technology actually did work, but to this date, it hasn't yet been sort of deployed further up than 60,000 feet or something in Earth's atmosphere.
Right, in the space station. From my original conversations with Dr. Rubin, I ascertained that it was kind of a long, arduous process to discover the precise intensity and frequency of vibrations. I mean, there's an infinite variety of combinations. I mean, you can have it very high frequency, you can have it medium frequency, low frequency, intense, light. And from what I heard, unless this is an apocryphal story, he worked on sheep originally. He worked on hysterectomized sheep who had a tendency to osteoporosis, as women do if they have lack of hormones. And he had the sheep standing on these platforms, and he tried, just like Edison with a light bulb, he tried all manner of different frequencies to arrive at the optimal frequency for preserving bone. Is there any truth to that story?
No, absolutely. I think there was a sort of a band of mechanical force in the range of 0 to 100 cycles a second, 0.01 to 1 g-force, and then that was evaluated at various stages with experiments like the one you mentioned with sheep. There was also work done with turkeys. There's been a lot of
wow.
There's been a lot of work done with mice and rats over the years too. But I think if we sort of summarise, where is it now, Dr. Hoffman? I think in terms of the low intensity vibration, we put that in a range of something like 0.3, 0.4 g-force, and a frequency range around 30 hertz, so 30 cycles a second. Other frequencies which are slightly faster, so 90 hertz, 45 hertz have been used, but there seems to be a sort of genuine impact in that 30 cycles a second, 0.4 g-force under the feet. And then if you imagine, the human body has got quite a lot of absorbance, see, as you go up through the legs and into the back. At a 0.4 g-force, you can get approximately 0.3 g-force into the hips and into the lower back, which are the two target zones, particularly for humans, to get some benefit and mitigate the risk of osteoporosis fractures. The other important, very, very important element with these low-intensity vibration devices is they're actually very clever. So they're designed to constantly monitor the dynamic load. So by that, if we take a human and then compare it to a concrete block, we have the ability to change our position. We have different body compositions, so some of us are quite firm, others of us are maybe slightly more wobbly as such. So our dynamic load on a platform over a period of time can be prejudiced by our general body composition, but also how we're standing or our position on that platform. So the Maradyne type devices constantly use a closed loop feedback to assess the loading, and then they adjust themselves to output consistently for the treatments.
Oh, I didn't. So there's a sort of a servo mechanism that determines the optimal intensity for each person standing on the device,
and the maintenance of that for the session of use. And that's really important because it can then sort of correlate consistently to the clinical studies that have been done. Mm-hmm. So other types of vibration machine or vibration equipment, which
I was going to ask that. There are many. You can go to many gyms these days, and they have what are called power plates. Or you can buy a home version of the power plate. It looks like it's not just flat, it's a standing platform, and you hold on to some handles, and it just kind of vibrates the heck out of you. It's actually pretty heavy-duty vibration. What's the difference?
Yeah, so those are more like a vibration exercise. So they're used, their sort of primary benefit would be somebody that's looking for improvement in athletic prowess. So
I think some of the football teams use that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So one sort of 2 or 3 minute session on one of those devices is similar in its impact on your muscle to maybe 30 minutes to an hour of weightlifting or other high intensity exercise that you might be doing in a gym. So the way that they achieve this is to accelerate at a number of G. So they don't work in the realm of 0.3, 0.4 G force where the low intensity device like a Maradyne resides. These are maybe creating accelerations in a human anywhere from 2 to 3 to 6, maybe even as high as 8 and 10 G force. So they're extremely powerful. So that poses some sort of questions about who ought to use them. So if you're young, strong, conditioned, it would presumably be perfectly okay. The only thing you need to avoid, anybody needs to avoid, is cranial acceleration and the risk of percussive injury to the brain. Which you can do by suppressing the vibration into the higher body by, say, standing on those devices with your knees bent and your and maybe a much more sort of stiff attitude, so you can suppress the acceleration to the head. But for older population and maybe more frail, then there's maybe there's a possible risk from these types of devices. So I think the general education on vibration needs to be better. We're very motivated to do that, to help explain the different modalities and where they fit, and the risk and or the benefit of the low level versus the higher magnitude vibration devices.
Are there different consumer models to choose from among different manufacturers?
Yes, there are. So a number of the larger equipment are designed specifically for gyms or for places where multiple individuals are going to go and utilize them, and clinical type settings. And then there are other, as you've mentioned, smaller equipment which are available for purchase, and they can range in prices from anywhere around a couple of $100 up to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on which pieces of equipment is being purchased. A Maradyne in the United States is something around $2,000, and that's designed primarily for the person in their own apartment or in their own house to use.
And why do you think LivMD has an edge on some of the other products? What distinguishes it in terms of scientific rationale or quality?
Well, I think the people behind it have been researching this field for 30 years, so Clinton Rubin himself is the chief scientific officer of Maradyne. He and I have participated in a couple of the technology variants, the Juvent and before that the Exogen devices. So our relationship goes back nearly 18 years. And there's a sort of body of evidence, I think Dr. Hoffman, that's associated with that research. So, I think we've also learned as we've gone along, and we're continuing to learn, what this does, how it's doing it when we're validating our sort of earlier hypotheses, and we're learning more new things, particularly around the intracellular and the mechanisms of action and its effect on various tissue. I think the Maradyne device itself, it's a medical device, so we're very serious about the regulatory pathway that we follow with the device.
It's taken you, by the way, it's taken you a really long time, because between the science and I was saying, man, I hope they make these consumer models, and I would check my the website, every couple of months and say, gee, when are they going to finally release this? And it took several years, but finally you cleared the regulatory pathways, which are not easy to surmount, because FDA is very, very scrupulous about allowing these devices on the market.
FDA has always taken a view with osteoporosis that it needs a very, very large clinical trial. Even though it's considered low risk, it requires a large clinical trial if a osteoporosis claim is going to be made in the United States. And that's almost been impossible to fund since the various failings of venture capital and private equity and other factors, 7 or 8 years ago. So outside of the United States, though, in Europe and many other countries, the low-intensity vibration plates are approved for osteoporosis treatment and have been since they became available around 10 years ago. So there's a consistency with those regulatory bodies. But generally,
let's hear it for the European regulatory system, which allows a little more innovation.
Yeah, absolutely, but they're still pretty tough, and I think generally you find in all countries now that the FDA equivalent agencies are getting much tougher with technology, because of problems with breast implants and some of the other technology that's created risk, in people that have utilised them. So there's general rebound around the world in rigour in the registration process, but the good thing is, these types of devices like the Maradyne are approved in many countries for osteoporosis, so that's a good thing. And the clinical proof continues to come through. So there is an ongoing program of research, and I'm aware of a number of other clinical trials which are scheduled to start or will be commencing, within 2015, 2016, which is going to continue to provide information and guidance for people like yourself, the health professionals that listen to your show, but also the general public.
Well, indeed. We anxiously await your progress, and we'll look to you for some continual updates as these studies get performed. Where are the devices made?
Well, the good thing is they're a US product, so we actually assemble these and make and manufacture them in Chicago. And the research comes from primarily the United States, so it's a home-based technology, and this is coming from an Englishman who is now an American, so I think I can say that.
Okay, very patriotic of you. And so, what's today's intelligent medicine call to action? Where can people get more information or obtain a LivMD device?
Well, I think if they'd like to know more, they please contact us at, as you said earlier on in the program, Dr. Hoffman, www.livmd.us or www.maradyne.com.
And it's MARODYNE. And what resources can they find at your website?
They can find information and details about the device, and if they'd like further information, then through the contact us links within the website, we'll be very happy to speak with them further.
Are there places where people can demo the device? I mean, sometimes people like to take a test drive.
Yeah, we have a sort of growing network of medical professionals.
Actually, I have one in my office, which I demonstrate to patients.
Physical therapists, sports trainers, movement professionals, as well as medical doctors and doctors of chiropractors, etc., that have the devices. So there is a network of those available, and that's, again, can be found on the website.
But unless you want to come to visit me every single day, including on weekends, it's more practical to have your own private home device.
No, I think that's a very important point you make. Somebody can come and see your device at your clinic, Dr. Hoffman, but to make it practically useful for them, they should have their own one at home, or if they're living in a residential setting and there's access to one, then that's the way that we recommend it.
And if you find the price point daunting, maybe get a little co-op together, you and some of the gals you play bridge or mahjong with, and go in together and make it an afternoon ritual to do your LivMD treatment.
So the company does provide a financing plan. There's no interest or anything involved in that. So somebody, if they wish to buy it over a period of time, they're quite able to do that, as well as we also have a rental option available if somebody just wants to try it out to see if it fits with their lifestyle and it's something that they would want to do ongoing. Then that type of program is also available to people residing here in the States.
That's great to know. Well, thank you very much. Very informative, and I'm really excited about, and have really been very excited about this technology for a long time, because we're continually looking for ways to augment conventional therapy for osteoporosis, or some people are intolerant or prefer not to pull the trigger on powerful medications at the first instigation. Sometimes they're required, but other times people would prefer to use natural methods to forestall bone loss. And I think that this is a really, really important addition to our armamentarium, including the right supplements, exercise, proper diet. These all go into the equation. So thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and it was great to share some of the information about this useful technology with your listeners.
Thank you, Ian Cutts from Meradyne. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.